Good morning.
Buongiorno ai partecipanti di Google. No.
Good morning, Google
Buongiorno a tutti
participants,
voi.
as it
Grazie a
were.
Riccardo
May I
Luna,
thank
che
Riccardo
è
Luna,
un vero
a
esperto
true
di
expert
innovazione e
on
di
innovation
come attento osservatore di quello che succede.
and
Buongiorno e grazie
recent
ai protagonisti di questa
phenomena.
sessione, agli organizzatori.
I thank the
Per me è molto
organizers
importante
for
discutere di
inviting
cultura e
me.
contenuti
Discussing about culture and
e
contents
innovazione
and innovation is
è
very
qualcosa che
important, is very
da
dear to
anni
me because I have
auspico,
been
perché credo che uno dei grandi
I,
temi che
I
dovremmo
firmly believe in
affrontare
this. I think
è di
that
come
one of
davvero
the
l'innovazione
most
sta
important
cambiando il nostro
topics
modo
to
di
address
vivere.
is how innovation is changing our
Devo dire
lives.
che è un tema su cui sono spesso critico, io sono di
By
natura
nature,
critico,
I'm a
questo è
very
un tema in cui sono
critical person. I
particolarmente
like
critico, cioè credo che non
criticizing
si ragioni
things,
abbastanza
and I
su quanto
believe
i
we're
processi
not
innovativi abbiano
thinking
cambiato il nostro modo di
enough
vita.
over
Come dire,
innovation
l'invito
and the
magari a
impact of
farlo, che ultimamente
innovation
abbiamo
on
iniziato un
our
seminario
lives.
in Treccani che
Lately
si
at
intitola Web
Treccani,
e
we organized a
democrazia,
seminar entitled
per
Web
cercare di
and
capire
Democracy to
come
understand
sono cambiate le
how
modalità di
the
rapporto tra
relationships between
cittadini e
citizens
governanti
and
grazie
rulers have
al mondo
changed
web.
thanks to the web.
Ma dovunque vi girate
Wherever you
troverete
go,
che questi
you will
cambiamenti ci
see
sono
that
stati,
these
sono stati ad
changes
una
have
velocità che non
occurred
abbiamo mai
at an
conosciuto, che l'uomo non ha
incredible
mai conosciuto.
speed.
Sono avvenuti quasi
These changes
sempre
have occurred
anticipando il pensiero, la riflessione.
ahead of time,
È un grandissimo
ahead of
storico come
thinking, ahead
Edward
of
John Osborne in una delle sue
reflection. A great
riflessioni dice che
historian
per la prima
like
volta della
Eric John
storia
Osborne
lo
used to say that
storico
for the
non
first
riesce
time in
nemmeno ad avere il
history,
tempo di registrare i
historians have no
cambiamenti,
time
non
to
solo
take
di
stock of
prevederli o provare
changes,
a
let alone
interpretarli,
predict
ma
or
arriverà a fare una
interpret them.
cronaca
And
quando
very
quei
soon
cambiamenti
they
sono
will
a loro
just
volta già cambiati.
narrate and tell
Può
changes
sembrare una cosa da
once
poco, ma
more
vi invito a
changes
pensare, non era mai
have taken
successo nella
over. And
storia
this
del
has never
pensiero
happened in the history of
umano.
human thinking.
Sono appassionato di cultura e di innovazione perché
I'm
vengo da
passionate about
un'esperienza in un
culture
luogo
and
che
about
appare molto
innovation
tradizionale come la
because I have a
Treccani.
background in a place which is
Però ho avuto la
very
fortuna di
traditional as
partecipare
the
a una
Treccani
lunga e
Encyclopedia.
complessa
But I was lucky
transizione che è
enough
avvenuta
to
in silenzio, un
participate
po'
in a
per
very
questo
long
stile
and complex
Treccani di fare
transition
le cose, come dire, senza
which
troppo
was done
apparire,
quite
che è
quietly
stato quello di
because
porsi il
at the
problema,
Treccani
che come
organization we
forse
do things very
non vi è
quietly.
capitato insomma, di conoscere, perché
I don't know if you have
noi ci trovavamo di fronte a un grande
if you're familiar
progetto
with what we did,
culturale che è
but we
quello
were
delle
confronted with
enciclopedie,
a
che
big
stava
cultural
scomparendo nella storia
project
del
that is
mondo.
the project of
Non
an
esiste più
encyclopedia, which was
un'enciclopedia nel
disappearing
mondo.
from the history of
Per
the
darvi
world.
un'idea di che
There are
cos'era
no longer
un'enciclopedia,
projects of
l'enciclopedia
creating
britannica
encyclopedias.
Churchill, quando
To give you an
decide di fare i
idea,
suoi viaggi in
the
giro per il
Encyclopedia
mondo, nei
Britannica,
suoi
when
diari
Churchill
scrive che
decided to
preferisce
take
andare
trips
ad
all over the
Argel, dove
world,
c'è
in his
una sede della
journals he wrote
Britannica,
that he
perché il modo in cui la
preferred to
cultura in questo
spend the
grande
night in
impero ha
places where there
fatto, ha
was
creato
a
l'idea del dominio e del
location of the
confronto con gli altri
Encyclopedia
paesi.
Britannica.
Tutto questo è
This is just to give
scomparso.
you an idea of the
I francesi
importance of
enciclopediae
the Encyclopedia Britannica.
anglosassone non ci sono,
Everything
le
has
enciclopedie
disappeared. We no longer have
non
French
c'è un'enciclopedia
encyclopedias. We no longer
spagnola, non c'è
have
quella
Russian
più simile a quella
encyclopedias. There is
italiana che
no
era
Spanish
Brockhaus in Germania.
encyclopedias. And we
Sarebbe
had
anche interessante
Brockhaus in
studiare tutti
Germany.
gli errori
It doesn't
fatti,
exist
che
anymore.
spesso
And
sono
I think it'd be
arrivati prima di
interesting to
tutti,
study all the
sono
mistakes that were
arrivati
made.
come dire, a provare a digitalizzare tutto e mettere tutto su rete, poi sono state fatte le
Because
enciclopedie su
they
CD,
try
poi
to
sono state fatte
digitalize
le
or
enciclopedie su
contents, then
abbonamento,
encyclopedias on
tutta una serie di
CDs were
casi
made,
molto
then
spesso di
encyclopedias
errori.
on subscription.
Poi
So
arrivato a un
different
certo punto
attempts were
un
made, and
modello
perhaps
molto
a
forte che
number
si
of
è imposto
mistakes
che è
were made.
Wikipedia.
Then at a certain point,
E mentre
Wikipedia
tutto
was
questo succedeva,
developed.
in Treccani si è creato un luogo
And while
di
everything
riflessione
was
su quello che stava
unfolding
succedendo
at La
e abbiamo
Treccani,
provato a
we
spostare
tried
quello che è il
to
progetto di Giovanni Gentile, che
think
ormai ha
this
90
over
anni,
and
per
see
fare
what we
appunto
could
questa
do. And we
grande
decided to
enciclopedia italiana, quella che
expand
dovrebbe
the
essere
project of
l'enciclopedia degli
Giovanni Gentile.
italiani,
Giovanni Gentile
cioè
wanted to have
un'enciclopedia
a big
capace di
Italian
coltivare i
encyclopedia,
presupposti
which was
gentiliani.
meant to be
Come
the
sapete, l'enciclopedia è
encyclopedia
la capacità
for
di fare sintesi,
Italians.
come scrive
As you
Gentile.
know, encyclopedia
Non dovete
is the
inventare nulla,
ability to
dovete prendere i
summarize, as
contenuti
Gentile wrote.
migliori
You don't have
che
to invent
rappresentano una
anything. You just
cultura, dice
collect the best contents representing a culture, as Gentile claimed, and you need to be able to put them together so that from any entry you can trace back or you can understand that thought. It's extraordinary. Just to give you an idea, there are encyclopedias which have 2,500 entries, but they have so many cross references among them. So if you build a perfect grid, just like the world of the web, but there were no tags at the time, you have possibility to access contents. And this was done with an extraordinary talent. And also there were logical connections, so it was possible to trace different entries. So we did that, but we wanted to do it in the digital world. And we realized that this portal, the Treccani portal, has more than 200,000 single users a day. And I think it's very impressive. Also, we have understood the importance of vertical portals. So we have, by the way, I said 200,000 users, but at a certain time we discovered that more than 30,000 of them were interested in geopolitics. And geopolitical content is not part of our Treccani tradition, and I'm talking of big numbers. If I say 30,000 users, it's really a lot. So little by little, we realized a number of things. First of all, we realized that while in the country there were not enough fora where these contents could be developed, we realized that there was a strong demand for geopolitical contents. So perhaps there is a lack of understanding that the audience is interested in some contents, but we had to find the right way to disseminate these contents. Also, we made some attempts. We tried to combine these vertical portals with the book format. So we had the yearly geopolitical atlas, and it was actually working. So we made some experiments, and this experience made me understand a lot. I realized the meaning of moving from a type of language, and I'm sorry if I'm boring you, but these topics might be interesting for you. So to move from the language of literary sources, meaning literature or sometimes even the world of law. So over the years we realized that through the net people were asking for new languages. What were we supposed to do? We could do just like Wikipedia does, just to collect everything. By contrast, we realized it's not that we had to make a selection, but we had to create pathways, if you like, and we realized that people liked that very much. Then everything ended because I went to the ministry. But when I hear the term encyclopedia, I still feel sorry for having abandoned these projects. Now my responsibility is trying to introduce a bit of innovation in the Ministry for the Cultural Heritage and Tourism. So innovation and change, which just the digital media can allow, I believe. Why am I saying this? I believe we are lagging behind a lot, at least public administration or my ministry in particular, and of course I'm deeply sorry for this. But I think that strong innovation, if we try to train all those who have to work in the world of the cultural heritage can actually change the relationship between those who have to organize work and those who are going to consume these cultural products. And I'm saying this because I tried to have a dialogue through the social networks. I try to talk to people who have an interest in cultural heritage, cultural products, and I have realized that there is a strong need to put experiences together. There is an extraordinary will to participate in change. And the world revolving around digital media and innovation can do a lot, can help tremendously. But I believe that through innovation we can very quietly discuss the relationship between the private and the public spheres. And I'm saying starting from my ministry. So the places where we work on contents, and we might have a dialogue with Google. And I think clear-cut rules should be established and should be used in this dialogue. So contents should be made available to a wide public, and we have to do this because if we do have a huge cultural heritage, we also need to put these contents available to the public. And unfortunately today they cannot be used fully. I'm not just talking of statistics when people say that a certain Italian monument is visited less than a French monument. What I'm saying instead is that it'd be nice to create pathways just like we did at the Treccani Encyclopedia. For instance, we can work for schools, for classrooms. So I'll be very happy that my students or my children will be able to work on a digital whiteboards, but it's also important to provide the right contents to the digital world. Sometimes we do not establish systems. We work on a standalone basis. So in schools, sometimes Italian contents are disappearing. So when I decided to take up this cultural challenge, I thought, if school books and textbooks no longer have a central role in promoting culture in Italy, and this is a source of concern for me, of course, because the time of the web is not the time of paper books, we will run the risk of having our children studying on textbooks and contents which have nothing to do with our traditions and with our present time. So I think that the languages of a country must be protected because the history of a country is made of this. But it's also true that technology can favor the reorganization of contents considering the consumption modes of citizens. So the digital media can favor creativity. I went to Brussels and we discussed a major challenge, this project of culture, Creative Europe, a challenge we cannot lose. I've also learned that those who can promote this coming together between cultural traditions and innovation usually get to an important result, an important goal. But it's not a linear path. This requires a process where all stakeholders have to work together towards a single goal. And unfortunately, this teamwork is something we are not currently pursuing in Italy. So it'd be very nice to discuss about the free movement of contents and a topic that is very dear to me, which is the request of disintermediation in the world of contents. This is a topic that is very dear to me. You know, we are having disintermediation processes all over, in all sectors. Sometimes we are talking of the weakening power of politics, and perhaps it has something to do with the fact that we no longer want intermediation, intermediaries. We want to have one-to-one relationships. We tend to create specific communities on topics. And this is connected to my experience at the Treccani Encyclopedia. We made a big project on archaeology and the antiquity. We had works of great value involving, for instance, 2,000 users who had an interest in a specific topic. Then we started working, without inventing anything, but perhaps we used a community on Facebook. We reached very high numbers. So we realized that we could not say that people were no longer interested in archaeology, but perhaps that a different medium was needed to reach out to the interested public. It's also true that in Italy we have the highest number of encyclopedic archives. We have films archives. Just think of the Luce archive. And last year it entered the memory registry of UNESCO. In this archive we have 4,000 hours of films, 400,000 pictures, and that can be accessed thanks to a site which is archivoluce.com. We have 30,000 videos on YouTube as a result of a partnership with Google. But in many cases, these archives can no longer be accessed. Sometimes it's difficult to even make a search, even though I'm sure they keep an important part of our history. So if we organized these contents in the right way, and if we gave them to the right communities, they could be given a new set of life. So that would be a new interpretation of the role of an archive. Of course, there is a lot of work to do. We should digitalize them. We should organize them in a logical fashion. Today they are not liquid enough, as it were. They are not on web-oriented platforms. But web languages have changed. But I believe that this could be a project to make the most of the Italian cultural heritage and just prove a best practice of what could be done. And I think that would be a unique opportunity to involve both private and public entities which have know-how, technology. So perhaps the cultural heritage should be dematerialized, and I apologize for this strong term, but it's important to be open to the discovery by users, but also by tourists, by scholars, by people who have an interest in art. And this makes us understand how we can work for culture and tourism. They could be two exceptional drivers of growth for the growth of this country. But if we want to do this, we must be courageous. We must be bold enough to break with the past. So we have to overcome the idea of a self-referenced web, which is linked to traditional schemes. Because I believe that the future lies in the ability to create digital presences built around users asking us to consume culture, tourism included, without separating these two items. So if you like, it's just the opposite of what we used to do when dealing with culture. The goal must be one, however, that is the transition to an economy which I like to call a democratic economy of culture, and the approach must be based on inclusion, so that the highest possible number of people can experience cultural contents. It's a model, to some extent, in which culture is present in the country more than it has been up until now. It's a model, because at present our model tends to marginalize culture. I'm not thinking just of resources, because we all complain, we all say that this ministry is not given enough resources, but I'm going beyond this. And I say this because I'm convinced that the web is in fact a democratic medium. So we have to do our best for the web to be used to disseminate the main contents of this country, cultural contents. And I hope I'm not using an unusual term, but the trust that the ministry should do is to provide customers with the possibility to have projects tailored on their needs. Of course, they should pinpoint possible pathways in this extraordinary boundaryless world that is the web. And this is what I'd like to start in our ministry. So we need to work together with users. So I think users must be at the center of our project, even because at the end they will be the judges of what we do. And also they will be the real enablers of our success. Thank you very much.